Hello everyone, welcome back again to our lecture video. And I personally welcome you all to our TLE subject. And for today's lesson, we are going to learn about frosting. Now, let us find out the meaning of frosting and what really it is. Let's start. Frosting is a sweet, sugar-based, soft mixture used to fill, coat, add flavor, and improve the appearance and texture. They are used on bakery recipes such as cakes, cupcakes, cookies, and pastries, or formed and used when decorating as a crafty baker, ranging from simple to elaborate. And in addition, frosting can contain a combination of another ingredients including butter, milk, water, eggs, and various flavorings. It can be cooked or uncooked. When we say cooked, as with boiled icing, and if it is uncooked, it is like a buttercream icing. And it can range from thick to thin. There are so many choices. The flavors and consistencies should complement what's inside, and one should not overpower the other. Some are cooked while others can be uncooked, and many can be purchased ready-made from a baking supply store online, making sure you understand the storage requirements of each. Actually, the goal of roasting or icing is to put it on the cake or cupcakes smoothly while keeping the cake crumbs out. It also adds a protective shield that preserves freshness in a baked dessert. Usually, two layers of frostings are put on, a crumb coat or a thin layer and a final coat. Sometimes a third icing coat can be applied if necessary. Actually, after finishing the cake, it will stay fresh at least a couple of days, depending on the type of icing and filling used. Once cut, keep the cut edges of the main cake covered with plastic wrap or waxed or parchment paper. If it contains any perishable items, the cake must be refrigerated and can only stay out of the refrigeration for no more than 2 hours for food safety reasons. Now, after finding out the meaning of frosting, let us find out as well if frosting and icing is different to one another or if they are just the same. So let us answer this question. Is frosting is an icing or an icing is a frosting? Actually, a handful of culinary dictionaries state that frosting and icing are one and the same. But most other sources differentiate the two. They define frostings as relatively thick, sometimes fluffy recipes that are used to fill and or are spread over a cake, while in icings, they are considered to be typically white, have a thinner consistency, and are usually poured or drizzled over cakes, forming smooth, shiny coatings. So basically, frosting and icing is almost the same. However, they differ in some areas. Now, to study deeper the difference between frosting and icing, let us look the next slide. So, as you can see, I have here two cookies that both have an icing and frosting. Let us look the first picture. The first picture, the white that you can see over a cookie is an icing. When you say icing, it is a powdered sugar base. Sugary sweet taste, shiny and smooth. While the frosting on the second picture, it is buttercream base. Buttery sweet taste, textural, and good for color. Let us find out more the differences of icing and frosting in different areas. So, look at this picture. In terms of base, frosting is using butter or cream, while icing, we use sugar more often. And in terms of taste, frosting is buttery, while the icing, it tastes sugary. And in terms of consistency, frosting is thick and gooey, while icing, it is thin and stiff. And in terms of appearance, roasting is fluffy while icing is smooth. So those are the differences, the particular differences between roasting and icing. Although they are almost the same and they just add more things to the cake or cupcakes or whatever pastries it is, they have some differences as well. All right. Now, let us find out the main requirements, okay, for frosting or icing. Actually, the main requirements for frosting or icing is that it be thick enough to adhere to the item being coated, yet soft enough to spread easily. And it has three main functions. So frosting or icing has three main functions, and those are number one, frosting contributes flavor and richness to the cake. It also adds interest and provides a smooth surface for decorating on. Number two, frosting improves the cake's appearance. Special occasion cakes become more festive with frosting and decorations. And lastly, the third main function of frosting or icing is frosting improves the keeping qualities of the cake by forming a protective coating around it, sealing in moisture and flavor and allowing it to be beaten over a couple of days. So those are the three main functions of frosting and icing. Now let's move. Now let us learn the six basic kinds of icing. Actually, there are more kinds of icing, but we are just going to focus with the six. Now, let's start with the first one. First basic kind of icing is what we call fondant. Fondant, it is a sugary syrup that is crystallized to smooth, creamy white mass. I believe most of you were able to see a real example of a fondant cake. So let us look the following pictures. There. So on this part, you will be able to see how a fondant frosting or icing will be placed in a cake. It is almost firm and whole, and it was used as sculpted to make a pleasant or aesthetic design for cakes. So that is the first kind of frosting or icing. Let's move to the second one. The second one is butter ice cream. Butter ice cream, it is these icing are light, smooth mixtures of fat and confectioner's sugar. They may also contain eggs to increase their smoothness or lightness. And don't you know that buttercream icing is the best icing for taste and good decorating results? In all of the icing or frosting, buttercream is considered the best icing. Of course, for taste and good decorating. Alright? Now, let's move to the third one. The third one is foam type icing. Foam type icing, sometimes called boiled icings. Why? Because these are simply meringues made with a boiling syrup. Some also contain stabilizing ingredients like gelatin. So that's it. It was just a meringue with a boiling syrup. So that is the third type of icing or frosting. Next, number four, the flat icing. As you can see on the first picture, that is an example of a flat icing. Flat icing is also called water icings. These are simply mixture of 10 times sugar, waters, and sometimes can syrup and flavoring. They are used mostly for coffee cakes and sweet rolls. As you can see, these are example sweet rolls. Flat icings are warmed to 100 degrees Fahrenheit or 38 degrees Celsius for application and are handled like fondant. Now, let's move to the fifth one. The fifth one is fudge type icing. As you can see in the picture, especially the third picture, it looks like the filling inside a fudge bar, right? It looks like that one. So when you say fudge type icing, these are rich cooked icings. So these are cooked icings. heavy intake. Remember a while ago I mentioned that there are cooked and uncooked icing. So fudge type icing is an example of cooked icing. Actually, it was rich cooked icings. They may be flavored with a variety of ingredients. They are used on cupcakes, layer cakes, and loaf cakes. They are stable and hold up well on cakes, and in storage, stored icings must be covered tightly to prevent drying and crusting. All right. Now let's move to the last type of frosting or icing, and that is royal icing. So, as you can see on the picture, royal icing is called decorating or decorator's icing. It is similar to flat icing, except that it is much thicker and it is made with egg whites, which makes it hold and brittle when dry. So as you can see, it is like a flat icing. However, it is made with egg whites and it makes hold and brittle when dry. So those are the six basic kinds of roasting or icing. So that's it. So hope you guys have learned something for today, and we will be continuing our discussion in the future. Thank you so much for listening.